What's it like to walk 500 kilometers with just the clothes on your back? Well, we're going to ask a few people. Coming up on the Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. I am driving through the mountainous country south of Cúcuta, Colombia, a couple hours south of there, on the way to Bogota. And the reason I've come out here is because this is the route that many Venezuelan migrants are taking on their journey trying to escape from the poverty and the destruction of their country. See, a lot of people have said that the wealthiest Venezuelans left a long time ago and they went by plane to Miami or Spain or somewhere like that. The middle class Venezuelans have gone on the bus to maybe Ecuador or Chile or maybe Panama, someplace like that. But the poorest of the poor, the poorest Venezuelans, they take a bus to the border and they walk across into Cúcuta. Once they get to Cúcuta, there's not really much for them there other than a little bit of aid that's brought in, because there are so many Venezuelans there now that it really is impossible for them to find a job or even sell things, start their own little small business or something, because they say that Cúcuta was a city of 300,000 people until the Venezuelans showed up, and now there are something like 500,000 Venezuelans in Cúcuta today. So that's obviously, it makes Cúcuta a very difficult place to try to make a living. So a lot of these poorest of the poor would rather go to maybe Bogota or Medellin or Cali or even other countries from there, but they don't even have enough money to buy a bus ticket, which runs maybe about $40 to take a bus that's 20 or 30 hour drive to some other part of this country. So if you don't have 20 or 30 bucks in your pocket to get a bus ticket, and you can't earn enough money to get a bus ticket, then what do? Well, if you're many of these Venezuelans, you strap on a little book bag or whatever you can find, and you start walking. And that is what they are doing here on this route that I'm on right now. These Venezuelans, most of them have to walk for about 2 weeks to go from Cúcuta to Bogota. Once they get to Bogota, they're hoping that they can find work more easily. They're hoping that maybe there'll be more aid for them. There are camps set up in Bogota and that sort of thing. In Colombia, as a whole, there are something like 1 million Venezuelan refugees. And so even the country of Colombia is getting pretty topped out. They've done a great job. The government of this country has done a great job of assisting and helping these poor people that are just destitute. And so, you kind of have to make a distinction between the type of refugees who are coming to Cúcuta in order to sell whatever little things they are able to take out of Venezuela and buy food and then carry them back across into Venezuela to their families. And the other kind of refugee, which is people who are just, I'm done with Venezuela. I got to go somewhere else. And they're leaving pretty much for good. There might be a little overlap there because there are some people that say, hey, if Maduro was gone today, I'd be going back to Venezuela tomorrow. One interesting thing, though, I asked a lady last night if you could, how much does it cost to take the bus from where she lived in Maracay, which is maybe a day and a half bus ride away from the border with Cúcuta. How much does it cost to take the bus from Maracay to Cúcuta? And it was about $20, something like that. Pretty cheap, actually. And she said many people are still in Maracay because they just don't have the money even for that bus ride. And I said, if they could get that bus for free, if the bus was free inside Venezuela, how many people would leave? And she said, everybody. Absolutely everybody would leave. So that just goes to show how desperate things are in Venezuela. A whole lot more people would be leaving if they could, but they don't even have enough money to do that. So for those who get here, some of them have arrived because their families have collected up money amongst themselves to raise $20 to buy the bus ticket to get them to Cúcuta in hopes that they'll be able to get some aid or earn some money or something and then bring it back to them and their families in Venezuela. Talked to quite a few people who, mothers who have left their children back in Venezuela and have come because they didn't have enough money to bring them. So they've come all the way here. They've been here for 3, 4, 5, 6 months or more, trying to earn some money and haven't seen their children. Can you imagine what that would be like? I can't. I don't want to even think about it. So you really have to feel for these people, especially the ladies that I met who were literally coming over here and having to work as prostitutes, choosing to work as prostitutes. I don't think anybody has to do that. But they're choosing to work as prostitutes because they just literally didn't have anything else to sell. And they couldn't find anything else to make money. So they were working, selling their bodies, and then taking the money back across to their families. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. So anyway, today I wanted to meet some of the people who are on this route. They're coming to Cúcuta. Hang on a second. Check this guy out. I'm going to turn the camera here. Hola. So I just stopped this guy and asked him where he was from. He told me he was from Venezuela. I asked him how old his baby was. He said she was 1 year old. I said, is she sleeping? He said, yes. And then I said, okay, well, I'm here as a journalist. I said, but I'm also here just because I like to help people. And so here's 50,000 pesos. I hope they can help you. And he said what everybody seems to say, and that is, may God multiply this back to you. And so I said, can I pray for you? Okay. A minute later, I found another family sitting by the side of the road, so I stopped and talked to them too. I'm saying, hey, excuse me, we want to bless people that are out here. I know you guys have a really difficult journey ahead, very difficult. And there are people in the United States who love Venezuelans, who want to support them, and have sent you some money to help out with your journey. And it's all in the name of Jesus. And how old are you, little guy? 4? You look like you're 7. Oh, what a sweet, precious little baby. So are you guys thinking about going back to Venezuela someday? And he said, sure, one day, as soon as the government's gone. And I said, so what are you going to do in Bogota? And he said, we're going to go to Bucaramanga, and if we can get a job there, we're going to stay there. If not, we're going to go on to Bogota. We've got to find a job. Here, there's just nothing for us, he said. So then I just hugged them all and told them I loved them, and off we went. Okay, so where were we? You know, I keep getting interrupted by all these people that are hurting and need help. I guess that's a good thing. And I got interrupted by a phone call from Fox News. Wanted to see if I can do an interview tomorrow. And perhaps I will. Anyway, so guys, I am driving up here and just passing hundreds and hundreds of these Venezuelans who are walking with their children. You saw what we just did there. They're walking with their children, and they need help. They need shoes, they need socks, they need medical care, they need food, water, place to sleep, things to sleep on, pretty much everything. And I think it really speaks to how desperate it really is becoming in Venezuela when you see people that will literally leave everything they have, including their own children, behind in order to try to survive. They're not even seeking like, oh, I just want a little bit better income, I want a better life. No. They're literally trying to not die. And so it's pretty powerful to see this. We've been out doing kind of an assessment today with Operation Blessing. Operation Blessing is hoping to bring a lot, truckloads of resources here, far more than we could ever do. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe we'll be like Operation Blessing someday and bring boatloads of aid to people. That'd be fun. Anyway, we've been out with Operation Blessing, and it's interesting because when you first think about coming to help these people, you think, oh, we're going to bring in food, we're going to bring in water, we're going to bring, those kinds of basic needs, that sort of thing. And then you get here and you start meeting the people and asking them about what is it that you actually need. And they say, well, what I could really use is a pair of socks because I have to walk for 8 hours a day, and I don't have any socks. I don't have any socks. I've got flip-flops. So they actually were giving out shoes today, and they gave out some little solar lamps because many of these refugees are going to be walking at night to stay out of the heat because it's pretty brutal down in the lower elevations. Conversely, when they get up to the higher elevations near Pamplona, it gets misty and rainy and actually pretty cold. And so these people have, oh my gosh, 1, 2, 3. They're just lines of little children. People walking with little children on their backs, on their shoulders. It's pretty sad. So it gets so cold up there in the mountains that hypothermia is a real threat. So they need blankets, they need jackets, anything they can get to help them on their way. Now, one difference between what I saw at the caravan and what I saw today, the caravan being the one that went from Honduras through Guatemala and Mexico to the United States, there are a couple big differences. First of all, these people that are leaving Venezuela, they're not planning to go to the United States and enter illegally. They are actually given papers at the border with Colombia that give them safe passage and allow them to seek medical care here in this country, allow them to, I think, even put their kids in school, and they are walking up here, whatever. But their intent is to try to survive long enough for the government of Venezuela to fall, and then they want to go back home. That's a far cry from what I saw in the caravan. The caravan was people being sold an idea in Honduras and Guatemala, people being sold on this idea that all you have to do is get to the United States and all your dreams will come true. And oh, by the way, the U.S. government, the Democrats, will give you lots of money, lots of free stuff, free education, free everything. And those people really don't have any thought of going back to Honduras or Guatemala or El Salvador. They're coming to the United States to stay, to live in the United States. That in and of itself is not a bad thing. I mean, migration, I think people ought to be able to move if they want to move. The thing is, in that case, people were being artificially assisted to get to the United States for a very specific political purpose. Here, I don't see the political purpose. I mean, here people are certainly destitute, hungry. I mean, we're seeing a level of malnutrition in Venezuela that I've only ever seen maybe in Africa or perhaps Haiti. It's really bad. And I just talked to the head of Operation Blessing International Division about that today. And I want to play you a little bit about of what he was saying about what they're doing here in this country. Check it out.
Hey, my name is Diego Traverso, and I'm the director for disaster relief for Operation Blessing International. So we're in Colombia right now. Operation Blessing is in Colombia. We're doing an assessment of how we can be more effective with the help that we're going to provide to the Venezuelan crisis in Colombia border, Cucuta, and probably on the Brazil border in the following days.
What have you seen over the last couple of days as far as the situation?
So the situation is is increasing. The sense of desperation of these people is is on the air. You can smell it, you can feel it. There's no fear. I don't feel that there's not that sense, but it's more like desperation, hungry. It's something it feels like something is cooking, and is ready to explode.
And so what are some of the things that you found that we could do, that Operation Blessing could do that you didn't know about when you first got it?
So we base our assessment in different areas. One of the key ones is water. So we check water sources because we saw the news, people is drinking water from the rivers, contaminated, polluted, how do you say it, black waters or dark waters?
Black water.
So people is drinking from black waters even. And that's one of the first things, because water is life. And Operation Blessing has a lot of solutions, tools, and equipment to provide clean water to people here in Colombia. So that's one of the first assessments. We see that we can be very effective and we can provide different solutions to the people in the ground, to the refugees from Venezuela, on the shelters, in the border, and on the way, because we want to make the distinction that there is two kind of Venezuelans crossing. The ones that goes in and out every day to get food, work, or whatever, and they go back to home in Venezuela and feed the families, and the other ones that are just leaving the country and trying to finding a new life. So that distinction, I think, is key for us to understand how we want to respond to this disaster. And why I said disaster, because it's a humanitarian crisis, and it has to be taken like that. It's not just like something is happening little because the government is collapsed in Venezuela. It's collapsing and it's collapsed. So it's like there is a point right now that they cross. There is no go back for them. So we have to respond to our brothers and sisters in Venezuela with love. But love, what is love? It's actions, and that's why we want to be here. Operation Blessing want to be the hands of Christ, of mercy, providing food, water, shelter, and medical. So the next point is medical attention for us. We are bringing some medical teams from Operation Blessing in El Salvador and other offices around the world. We're trying to coordinate that right now based on the need. And the need is, we're going to focus on nutrition for the children. We see many kids, and people told me, that kid is like 12 years old and looks like 6. So that's one of the things that we wanna support. Like children and women are the most vulnerable population everywhere, and they're suffering.
You've been all over the world, and you've seen malnutrition in Africa. Mm-hmm. Is it weird to see malnutrition like this in Latin America?
It is.
Tell me that.
It is. It's very weird to see. Let me elaborate. Yeah, it's very weird for me, for us, to see malnutrition on kids, on children in Latin America. We haven't seen that in Africa, in other countries that are suffering poverty for years, in Haiti, for example. But here, it was something very new that it looks like they were locked down in a country and then they just, for years. And then we're seeing the devastation that caused, that happened. A government that was not able to provide basic needs for their population. And we're seeing this in the border. I can't imagine the time that we are going to be able to enter to Venezuela to help the rest of the Venezuelans. I think it's going to be horrible.
¿Cuál parte de Venezuela?
¿Ah?
¿Dónde vives en Venezuela?
Allá en...
Un bicho.
Estamos allá en Ocumare.
Ok. Que
Gracias,
Dios
mamá.
le bendiga.
Amén.
Okay. So, that girl she's walking 500 kilometers wearing flip-flops. And I just gave her enough money to get a pair of shoes. Told her to go get herself some shoes. I suppose she could use that money and take a bus about 3/4 of the way to her destination if she wanted to. That might be the smarter way to do it, but I guess it's up to her. Actually, though, it's up to you guys. You guys are giving out all this money, and I want to just personally thank people who are giving so generously. I'm just having fun. I mean, this is you're doing. I'm just kind of along for the ride. I'm really enjoying it. So we're going to keep helping people as much as we can. We're going to keep showing you what we're doing. Keep it up.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.